Randy Orton is one of the most iconic names in WWE history, known for his incredible in-ring skill and natural charisma. However, Randy hasn't always had the easiest time getting along with everyone he worked with. In today's video, we're taking a look at the wrestlers who got under the Viper's skin, both backstage and inside the ring. In the early days of Randy Orton's WWE career, he was put into matches with veterans on house shows. The older guys were supposed to be a safe pair of hands, while the rookies were getting used to working in front of a live crowd. One of those veterans was Bob Holly, a wrestler known for his physical, hard-hitting style and his polarizing reputation in the locker room. Some saw Holly as a no-nonsense, old-school wrestler, while others viewed him as a bully who enjoyed dishing out punishment. For 8 grueling weeks, Orton found himself paired with Holly on WWE's live event circuit. Holly would push Orton to his limits, often making him bleed the hard way. It wasn't unusual for Orton to come back from their matches visibly bruised and beaten up. Many believed Holly liked to test the young guys to see if they were tough enough to survive in the wrestling business. And being a second-generation wrestler didn't help Orton either. While his father's legacy may have gotten his foot in the door, Bob Holly was determined to find out if Randy truly deserved to be there. Ultimately, though, those challenging matches helped shape Orton into the tough and resilient performer he would later become. While Orton may have gained respect for Bob Holly after their time working together, the same couldn't be said for Bubba Ray Dudley. At a house show in 2003, Orton and Batista, then part of Evolution, faced off against the Dudley Boys. A mistimed double-team move resulted in 3 separate injuries happening all at once. Batista tore his triceps, Bubba injured his back, and Orton broke his foot when Bubba accidentally fell on it. In the aftermath, tensions flared backstage. Bubba reportedly blamed Orton and Batista for the botched spot, even as both men were being loaded into an ambulance. Years later, Orton didn't hold back when asked about his feelings toward Bubba Ray. In an interview, he said, "I never liked him. I never liked what he did because he only thought of himself in the match. My foot was broken. It was his fault." Bubba Dudley is the most out-of-shape, fat, no-work ethic-having person I knew, and you had a bad taste in your mouth when you met him. Orton's frosty relationship with The Rock dates back to 2004, when the two briefly shared the ring leading up to WrestleMania 20. At the time, Orton was still establishing his place in WWE, and tensions arose as their interactions unfolded. While The Rock was winding down his wrestling career to focus on Hollywood, Evolution took on The Rock and Mick Foley at WrestleMania. While they worked together professionally to deliver the storyline, it was reported that there was tension backstage between the men. Although it didn't spark any major incidents, the seeds of Orton's resentment were planted during this time. Fast forward to 2011, and things boiled over. By then, Orton was one of WWE's biggest stars, and he didn't hide his frustration about a part-time star stepping back into the company as if he'd never been away. Orton unleashed on The Rock in a radio interview, questioning his authenticity and work ethic. He claimed The Rock relied on teleprompters and writers for his promos and accused him of lying to the fans, pointing out that The Rock had once promised never to leave WWE again, only to walk away and return to Hollywood later. Orton even referred to The Rock as a snitch, saying that he had gone to Vince McMahon to complain about Orton's comments in interviews. Orton revealed that John Laurinaitis had pulled him aside backstage to give him a stern warning on McMahon's behalf to stop bad-mouthing The Rock. Apparently, the two men shook hands later that year, but it's telling that they haven't crossed paths in the ring since 2004. Randy Orton has never been afraid to say exactly what he thinks, and he seems to have a very low patience threshold. During a WWE tour of Australia, Kenny Dykstra pushed his patience too far. After repeatedly annoying Orton at a bar, and despite several warnings to back off, Orton reportedly slapped Dykstra unconscious. Orton later described him as cocky and disrespectful. This lack of patience carries over into the ring as well. Orton is a known perfectionist and can get frustrated when someone doesn't meet his standards, which can have lasting consequences. In 2010, he was involved in a match with Kofi Kingston on Raw. At the time, Kingston was riding a wave of momentum, and it seemed like WWE was lining him up for a main event push. However, one misstep in the ring with Orton changed everything. In a triple threat match involving Orton, Kingston, and John Cena, the planned finish required Kingston to stay down for Orton's punt. Instead, Kingston got up too early, forcing Orton to call an audible and end the match with an RKO. Orton's frustrations boiled over in real time, with cameras catching him yelling at Kingston, calling him stupid. Backstage, that reaction reportedly had a ripple effect. Orton's anger influenced Vince McMahon's decision to cancel Kingston's push, relegating him back to the mid-card. For Kofi, it was a significant setback in his career, and it took him nearly a decade to regain the same level of momentum. But Kofi wasn't the only superstar whose career was affected by Orton's frustrations. Just ask Mr. Kennedy, whose mistake in a 2009 match led to one of the most infamous firings in WWE history. The incident occurred during a 10-man tag team match on Raw, where Kennedy executed a back suplex on Orton, who supposedly landed awkwardly. After the match, Orton was reportedly furious and claimed Kennedy's actions were reckless. While footage of the move doesn't look catastrophic, Orton's reaction certainly was. Labeling Kennedy as unsafe to work with, Orton's complaints were reinforced by John Cena, who reportedly sided with him. This further jeopardized Kennedy's standing in the company, a damaging accusation for any wrestler, but especially for Kennedy, who already had a reputation for being injury-prone. Days after the match, WWE released Kennedy, ending his run with the company. Not every wrestler who annoyed Randy has stayed on his bad side, though. In fact, one of Orton's most memorable partnerships started with plenty of friction behind the scenes. When Matt Riddle first joined WWE, Orton was far from impressed. Riddle's laid-back personality rubbed Orton the wrong way. During live interviews, Riddle would go off-script and make remarks, including comments about Orton's injury that Orton found disrespectful. Orton was even more disgruntled when WWE paired him in a tag team with Riddle. The situation escalated when Riddle claimed in another interview that he and Orton were moving the needle more than the Universal Champion Roman Reigns. This comment sparked massive backstage heat toward Riddle, and Orton had to step in to help him draft an apology and smooth things over. Over time, however, Orton grew to like Riddle, and he insisted that they keep the tag team together. Riddle is one of the rare cases where Randy went from hating working with someone to loving them. Going back in time to 2013 during the WrestleMania Revenge Tour, Orton found himself clashing with the Road Dogg. Road Dogg had recently embraced sobriety and took pride in being disciplined and punctual. He expected the same from those around him. Orton, on the other hand, was more laid back and often the last person to board the tour bus. This infuriated Road Dogg, who saw it as disrespectful. For Orton, having someone like Road Dogg call out his behavior probably felt patronizing, especially since Orton was already an established top star. Despite their differences, the two eventually moved past the issues. Road Dogg later admitted that his pride and ego had played a role in the tension, and today they reportedly have a strong working relationship. While Orton's problems with other wrestlers have usually been long-term, his match with Brock Lesnar at SummerSlam 2016 was an isolated incident, but one that he probably hated. The match ended with Lesnar delivering a series of very real elbow strikes to Orton's head. The blows required 10 staples to close the wound and caused a legitimate concussion. The decision to have Lesnar attack Orton the hard way was agreed upon beforehand by WWE management and Orton himself, but most of the locker room was unaware. Chris Jericho famously confronted Lesnar after the match, upset about what appeared to be a real attack on Orton. As for Orton, he has remained relatively silent about the experience, but it's safe to say that this match likely wasn't one of his favorites.